Hi guys, so I'm here with the person named Amy. So I would like to ask you the first question. How long ago did you learn sign language? Was it typical for you to learn at your age, or did you learn it from growing up?
I actually have yet to learn sign language.
Okay.
Ugh. Yeah, I grew up um, in the hearing world and I wasn't deaf. So, around when I was 30 years old, I started to lose my hearing and it was mild. And then, as the last like kind of 20 years, it's progressed to profound hearing loss. I have over time kind of learned a few signs, like I know how to do my name kind of thing, but not enough to like have a full on conversation in sign language. But I know it's something that I have been thinking in the last couple months that it's something that I probably should really learn. Yeah.
Um, What is your jobs like?
um, I'm currently actually I'm unemployed. Prior to that, I have been a staff accountant or a bookkeeper. So it was relatively easy with hearing aids on both sides to kind of hear people. Of course, there's always those variances of some people not able to hear them just because they're not projecting their voice enough for me to hear them with my hearing aids. So that's kind of just been a rocky thing, and you just kind of navigate it. Um, but usually it's the quiet setting. It's easier in an office. It's easier to hear. Um, the other key thing is like this last year, because my hearing aids are an older style. Um, I don't know if it's that or if my hearing has changed, but it's like I'm struggling more to hear people. And I tried an in-person job, and it was just really stressful because there was one person that I would talk to and I would like be like right next to them and I couldn't hear anything they were saying. Um, so I'm like navigating that side of things now in my life of like, okay, where do I go from here? And I know for sure at this point remote work works a lot better for me than in person because then I have option to caption when I'm talking to people where I don't have in a live setting.
All right. So I'm curious, do you have to lip read, or was that typical for you?
um I do it on occasions. I know that the less I rely on my hearing aids, the more I'm able to lip read somebody. But if I'm relying more on my hearing aids, that I don't rely on it so much, so it doesn't hold the skill kind of wanes or goes away.
Does it feel awkward for you to, adjust to that kind of lifestyle for you? Like before, you didn't have to lip read until now you have to kind of.
um, I think it just kind of navigates like it just kind of happens without you really like realizing you're doing it. And I know that happened, like when I got my first set of hearing aids, my ENT told me that I am probably relying more on lip reading than I am actually my hearing. So it's kind of weird how our body just kind of starts to pick those things up without us even paying attention. I'm like, well, I think I hear the voice.
Right. What are the best way to address your hearing loss with people that you knew or who knew you before you became deaf and hard of hearing? Like, how do they approach to that?
um, these days it's a lot easier. It's it's interesting because at one time I moved away and I live in Washington State and I moved to Las Vegas, and I was away for 2 years. And in that time, my hearing dropped. Plus I had lost a hearing aid. So I was a mess. I was really could not hear well at all.
Wow.
But when I came back, people didn't realize how bad how bad it had gotten, how much I could not hear, and that was a difficult one for them to for others to like understand of like, no, I really can't talk on the phone. I really can't hear on the phone. I really am not able to hear you even now in conversations in person and stuff. So that transition was a little hard of like, realizing that Amy's changed instead of seeing that progression happen in real time, because like my daughter saw it happen has seen my transition in like real time, because she's only known me as the mom with hearing aids. So yeah.
What kind of hearing aids that works for profound hearing loss levels?
I know there's a couple different brands. I personally wear Phonak hearing aids, and it's behind the ear hearing aids, and it's not in the ear hearing aids, which is definitely two different styles in hearing losses that those relate to, that a lot of like hearing people don't understand that there is a difference. And if you're going behind the ear, most likely you're further along in your hearing loss and aren't able to wear in the ear hearing aids.
Any other great brands for hearing aids?
Uh, I off the top of my head, I don't. I know there's the Phonak, and there's another brand that I've heard of, but I can't remember it off the top of my head, because I know I belong to a group called the Say What Club, which is a completely email correspondence of, so we're all pen pals on there, but everybody who's on it um, is hard of hearing or deaf. And they also cater towards people who have started to lose their hearing later in life, in that transition to of hearing loss. And there's a few people on there that have a different brand, but I forget what they were. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Um, have you found a community that you were able to communicate with?
um, the best way for me is, of course, verbally or text. I prefer like written as opposed to hearing. But for the most part, these days, I navigate in a hearing world. So I have to be able to like hear. And that's where I'm at with that whole like, where do I go from here now, where feel like I'm struggling in that hearing world, and what that next step will be for me. And yeah, and where do I feel more comfortable with that transition going? Because some people in my position are more apt to like get the cochlear implants, where I'm not sure if I want to have that surgery. It's going to be something that if I get to that level, that I am at that, or if I'm still at that where it's not my hearing loss isn't affecting my cochlea, then I stay in the hearing aid land, which isn't the best way of hearing. And how am I going to what direction do I still want to really kind of force that issue of like, I need that written text, I need the captions, I need, and really more strongly advocating for myself, or just really go more learning the ASL, so I have the interpreters and I have a form of communication with people at least that know that, as opposed to struggling with hearing. So yeah, the best ways is text, email, written, and then if you're speaking to me, face me. Look at me. Eye to eye contact is important. And projecting your voice and speaking clearly is are those are my two key takeaways that I'll need for communication.
Have your personal goals and interests changed when you start losing your hearings?
Okay, ask that one more time.
Have your personal goals and interests changed when you start losing hearing?
Um, I think it has in some sense. Not necessarily like in that overall goal of like what do I want to do in life. I've always enjoyed accounting, and I have gotten into more of a spiritual world as I've gotten older. I think mine's more of realizing that this is a hard one, is more like that interpersonal skills of like I don't really need to go out and socialize as often as I used to when I was younger. Where like if I was younger, it's like, yeah, I want that camaraderie. I want to be able to go out and go dancing or like eat, have a dinner at a restaurant. Where now I struggle with all of those scenarios. So I'm like, I would sooner just sit at home and read a book, do a puzzle, instead of like going out and having to try and listen to others. So I think that's my more of my goal is that I've kind of really was forced. It wasn't necessarily a goal, but more that was kind of forced of like really getting to learn to love being alone with myself, if that makes sense, and being okay with that because so many people aren't okay with that.
Thank you. Do you feel like you're treating differently after you lost your hearing?
um I do think I have changed with like um after I lost my hearing. And I think it's more that whole progression of like you definitely change. It's like the best way to describe it is a death because like if you lose your close parent, your life definitely changes with that death. And hearing loss is that same way. So each time your hearing changes or adjusts, like especially in my case where things fluctuate and get different, it definitely creates that death and that grieving where you do definitely like change who you are as a person and how you feel about the world and yourself, and you definitely have to grieve. Definitely have to grieve that change. Yeah.
So, how do you communicate at home, work, or public places?
um at home it's easier, um because then I've gotten to the point where like majority of my friends, or at least all of my friends, know to and family know to text me as opposed to calling me. So it's easier to navigate at home. With my daughter, she's very understanding because she's grown up with me with hearing loss, so she is able to accommodate me a lot more at home. Out in public, um, it's a different one. There's and it varies because there's some moments I might go to the checkout counter and ask somebody to repeat themselves, or sometimes I'll just really fake it and assume they're asking how is your day, and you're like, oh, it's great. Instead of like identifying anything. And I have found also that is like interesting because I will I will usually start with saying, "Oh, can you repeat yourself? I'm hard of hearing." But I find that if I say sometimes people don't really necessarily speak louder, but if I tell them that I'm deaf, they'll speak louder. It's really weird that people don't correlate that too.
Now you know how I feel.
I'm like, it's the same. We're all in the same boat, but at different levels. And but it's like people don't get it. It's weird.
So, last question is, how do people support someone that is struggling with a transition to, hearing to hearing loss? Like, for example, one of a follower comments about her mom situation. So, how can she help her mom transition?
Um, it's really meeting them where you're at, because it's like I can't change where I'm at. I can't I can't all of a sudden hear better or know what words I missed. I can't do that. Um, so it's like meeting them where they're at, where is their hearing at, and learning those accommodations for them. Um, and I know um, it's harder with as you get older, with the new technologies that they have, and the devices that you could potentially use to um, help. And I think it's a tricky boat because there's also the financial aspect of everything. Like the equipment that I all use, I have behind the hearing aids. I have a Compilot that, because my hearing aids aren't designed for Bluetooth, this allows me to Bluetooth like my cell phone to my hearing aids. Um, and so that costs like over $5,000 just for these devices. And so it's like it's really not a cheap disability to have, and I don't think any disability is cheap really to have. And so it's like meeting of like, what are they willing to do, what are they willing to accommodate, and as you get older, it's like you do kind of can get kind of stuck in your ways, but also too it's like realizing that depending on where, like the lady who was commenting about her mom is like, where what that level is at, and is she going through those moments of grieving where it's like hearing that she was like angry about her hearing loss. That's like a normal process with grieving, is that you do have moments that you're sad, that you're angry at whatever you're losing. And so that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I'm actually surprised she's actually wearing her hearing aids, because a lot of older people will get the hearing aids but then won't wear them. So the fact she's wearing them, that's a huge step in the right direction. And then the next would be like, is there devices that we can use for her hearing aids to like be able to hear the TV without having to use the loud sound bar? Because I've been able to do that with the Compilot. I have something that connects to the TV, so I can actually, remotely listen to the television while sitting on the couch without having to have a cord. I know my mom has hearing loss, and at night, what she will do is she'll use a pair of she's got the milder hearing loss, so she's able to use a pair of headphones. She'll put headphones on at night so the TV's not as loud and she can hear the TV and it's not interrupting my dad as he's sleeping. So there is that option of getting like a really good pair of hearing headphones to wear to like help hear the television with. So depending, and that all depends on where your hearing loss is at, and your hearing aids also too. Because I know I can't wear headphones at all. Even with the ones that cup, it'll ring too loud. My hearing aids will ring.
Um,
But yeah.
Last comments do you want to give out to the followers that are watching this video?
Um, I don't think I do. I think we covered quite a bit in some like this lifestyle. And had some really good questions. Yeah.
Um,
I thank everyone for had some really good questions with with the comments on my post. So
Hey guys, so I want to share a little bit of my advice. Please know that you're not alone. And there's so many people out here that have similar stories. So please don't feel like you're alone and that you can't process through it. And you can. And it is okay that this kind of judgment can be typical and challenging. And I just want to encourage you guys to stay positive and stay encouraged. And I know this journey is going to be one typical, lasting journey that you're going to be on for the rest of your life. And for those who don't know how to transition, help the transition from hearing to hearing loss, I want to say that the transition is not going to be easy. It's going to be a very emotional journey for some of you because you are so used to being hearing with no hearing loss growing up. And now all of a sudden you're losing hearing. I just want to share that it is okay to feel what you're feeling right now. It's okay to cry, feel frustrated, feel angry, all the kind of feelings. Because I know that being deaf is typical. It's typical, but I hope it gets better. And I pray that you guys embrace your deafness and moving on. I hope you have a big family support or big support system. Just know that you are never, ever, ever alone.